What is happening, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of SBST, Slightly Biased Sports Talks. Milan always here alongside Bowen, and we got way too much to talk about today. This is definitely going to be the longest episode because we have so much to talk about. The round of 16 of the Euros, the quarterfinals of the Copa America are set. We have one half of the NBA Finals set. So I don't know, Bowen. There's way too much to talk about today. What do you think?
Yeah, Milan, there's quite a lot to talk about, my friend. It's July 1st. The Euros are in full swing, of course, now due to being passed around to 16 into the quarterfinal stage. And last night, we saw one of the first two teams in the NBA Finals, the Phoenix Suns, advancing to the NBA Finals, their first finals appearance now since 1993, back when Charles Barkley used to play for the team. So, Milan, let's start with that game. We both watched that game last night. Suns obviously taking home the Western Conference trophy to advance to the NBA Finals. 6 games is all it took. But Milan, you got to say, the Clippers were pretty resilient after going down 0-2. They had a chance to force it to game 7, but just came up short.
100%. In the doc here, I have notes saying the Clippers, with credit to Reggie Jackson, Paul George, Marcus Morris, and Tyronn Lue, pushed the Suns even without Kawhi, which is those 4 individuals in terms of the Clippers organization for this season deserve all the credit because Paul George was receiving some of the nastiest slander I've seen in the NBA in a very long time last year after his playoff performance. Reggie Jackson, people weren't expecting much of him, and he's been balling in these playoffs.
Yeah.
Marcus Morris likewise, and Tyronn Lue. He was questioned that whether or not in his time with the Cleveland Cavaliers, whether it was just LeBron and a coach, but it seems that Tyronn Lue really figured it out with so many adjustments on the fly. Stephen A. Smith actually called him the best coach in basketball right now. I'd say he's up there. I wouldn't put him as the best right away, but I'd say he's up there because some of the adjustments he put out throughout these playoff runs against Dallas in the first round, the way they were switching around on Luka. I can't remember now who they played in the second round almost. Who was it they played in the second round?
Second round, that would have been
the Jazz.
Utah.
Right?
And that was a big series because they went down 0-2. Utah were looking very in the driver's seat in that series. And, they lost Kawhi Leonard halfway through that series and they still prevailed, even when Utah was the number 1 seed, as you both know. But yeah, Milan, to your point, yeah, it's just phenomenal how a roster with Paul George really as its main guy could push this series to 6 games, almost to 7, but they just fell short. The injuries, they just piled up on the Clippers at the end. Zubac was out of games 5 and 6. As we both know, Kawhi Leonard, he wasn't there. And Serge Ibaka, he's been out for a while now, dealing with a back injury of his own. Milan, what are your thoughts on the Clippers? Just like how they go forward from here, because we can talk all about their injury situation, how well they did to get it to 6 games. What do you think they do going forward? Let's talk about them first, and then let's get to Phoenix and go on them. So yeah, what do you make of the Clippers summer? Do you think they're going to run it back? Reggie Jackson, Nick Batum, they're both going to hit the free agent market this summer. Where do you think they end up? Kawhi, I'd say he's probably going to come back, right? He's not going anywhere, is he?
I would hope Kawhi stays. I mean, the only reason he left the Raptors was because he didn't want to be in Toronto. He wanted to be in LA. So I would hope he stays with the Clippers. As for where the Clippers go from here, I mean, this is like a beginning of a new era for the Clippers because we've always known them as a team that can't get out of the second round. It seems to be cursed for them. They just could not do anything when it comes to getting out of the second round. And they completely changed that now because they've, convincingly got out of the second round against a top team in the West. They pushed a top team in the West to 6 games in the conference finals. And they faced a very tough first round. So I mean, with all the injuries, like you said, piling up, this is a very, very big result for the LA Clippers. I would think that they should have been the favorites in the series regardless, just based on pure star power. But nevertheless, to look at that team and to see how well they did in Tyronn Lue's first season there, Tyronn Lue deserves a lot of credit, and he's definitely the greatest Clippers coach of all time. Forget Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers couldn't get that team out of the second round, and he just did it in his first try. So yeah, I would hope everyone stays together. Reggie Jackson, I feel like, is going to be getting a very big contract this summer.
Yeah.
Because these playoffs, he's been killing it. Nick Batum, I'm not really sure. I feel like he'll probably stay with the Clippers, but Reggie Jackson, it depends on if the Clippers, offer whatever someone else would offer him, because I'm sure he's going to be getting a very, very big contract.
Oh, I'm sure Reggie Jackson is definitely going to be someone that'll be testing the free agent waters, if you could call it that. Nick Batum, I don't know if he's going to go. I don't know if teams are going to be, asking him or offering him rather a big contract, because we both know what happened when he got that big money deal with Charlotte. His career just kind of tailed off after that, but he's definitely made a bit of a resurgence with LA, kind of playing within himself. But yeah, I really like the fits on that team. They, as we both know, pushing it to 6 games without the likes of Serge and Kawhi, who would have definitely been massive contributors, especially Kawhi. For me, I think the series would have gone 7 had Kawhi had stayed healthy. And for all the talk of Kawhi leaving, I think that's just banter and really nothing much of serious to that, because Kawhi Leonard, if he wanted to leave, or if he wanted to stay in Toronto, he would have stayed. The pull of LA and going back home is very strong for him. I know he wants to win a championship in LA. That's clearly a motive. So he's not going anywhere. And I think, yeah, if the Clippers had Kawhi, they definitely could have made the finals for sure. That didn't happen. Do you think if, let's say next January, we're in next January and things are going south, do you think they try to move on from Paul George and reshift? Because I think he's a great fit for that team. We both saw what he could do as the main guy, and his stats obviously went up, but just the inconsistencies, what kind of brought that down. Do you think Paul George will be the guy, that second piece to a championship team if they win a championship, or do you think they'd move on from him?
I would hope they stick with him, and I would think it's a horrible decision if they don't, just because Paul George, all the slander he's received from myself as well, I have to take it all back, because he's proven that one day he will be a Hall of Famer. He's got some of the greatest basketball ability in the league right now. He's fantastic, and there's no reason for him to leave. I think
unless they want to move him, that is, yeah. But on his own, sorry to cut you off there, but on his own accord, I don't think there's any reason for him to leave. He clearly was part of this project that Steve Ballmer and the Clippers were building when they brought both these guys to LA. Yeah, as you said, I don't think there's any good reason for him to leave. I think this is honestly his best chance at a championship in his entire career with the Clippers. So do you think they're gonna try to, add a third star to the mix? They've obviously got a lot of money tied down in their current situation, but Milan, you look around the West, it's going to be uncertain, the future of the Nuggets with what they do. Nikola Jokic, the only big star really there that's healthy. Jamal Murray, we're still a timetable on his return. The Lakers only getting older, and we saw that they dealt with injuries this year. And the Suns, Chris Paul, he's only getting older and older. They're in the finals, but who knows? This might have been a bit of a shock run to the finals this year. I don't think it is. You have to think that they're going to go to try really push this team over the edge for a championship right next season.
I would hope so. I mean, at the end of the day, Kawhi wanted Paul George with the Clippers, meaning if Kawhi wants to be there, Paul George will be there. I don't see there being a situation where Paul George is traded, because if that's the case, I'm sure Kawhi won't. Kawhi's the kind of player, if he doesn't want to play, he won't play.
Exactly.
And he's good enough to do it. He's good enough to allow himself to say he won't play, because we've seen what he's done in 3 finals appearances. He's gotten 2 finals MVPs, and one of them he lost in 7, I believe, to the
2013,
which was a fantastic finals by LeBron James. But nevertheless, I don't think Paul George is leaving. I would hope they can. There's just no chance, with the salary cap, that they get a third star. But it would be fantastic to see the likes of a Damian Lillard, like a very good point guard, a huge point guard, leading the backcourt for them. That would be good to see, because I think the position you should be upgrading the most is definitely Pat Beverly.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because a couple of weeks ago we were talking about the Clippers, and I was pretty harsh on them. I was saying that it's a team with 2 players in Kawhi and Paul George who are really great players, but they kind of fill the same mold. Both two-way players, both really good, but they've kind of fit the same mold. So if you're looking to upgrade anywhere, I mean, maybe you could look to upgrade at the forward spots or the center. Zubac and Ibaka, they've both kind of dealt with injuries. But then again, all teams deal with injuries. You can't really blame them for that. But yeah, Patrick Beverley, he fills a good role in what he does. But you're not looking for him to carry the offense, as was mentioned in last night's broadcast. So if you want to upgrade anywhere, I'd say it's there. Maybe Terrence Mann takes another step next year. He really impressed a lot of people, myself very much included, this year in the postseason. So I'd like to see them keep him around. But yeah, I think definitely the move for LA going into next year has to be to, run it back. Because I'd say if Kawhi Leonard was on this team, they'd probably be in the finals. So any more thoughts on the Clippers, or we should probably get on the Phoenix before this becomes a Clippers centric show?
Yeah. All I'll say is I have to, again, take back all the slander I gave Paul George because this man deserves his flowers and he deserves the respect he's earned.
100%. So on to the Suns, Milan. Chris Paul in the NBA Finals, the first time in his 16-year career. What do you make of this Suns run to the finals?
I love it. I mean, people can say that they're beating up on beaten teams already. That's the part of the game. Yep. The Suns navigated the injuries a little bit better than other teams did, and you can't really say nothing about that. You know what I mean? Chris Paul also had COVID and he missed the first 2 games of this series.
Exactly.
They still played. Devin Booker's been playing with a face mask throughout the last 2 rounds, I believe, or maybe a round and a half of the playoffs.
I believe it was since the Beverly when he collided with Patrick Beverley earlier in the series. But he's been dealing with a nose issue. It's not been easy. It's not been an easy run for any of these teams. And, Milan, I think really this playoffs can really be described as, the last team standing in terms of how many teams have gone through injuries. So you can't really, always teams like such as the 2015 Warriors, right? They caught a lot of slack because they went through teams with injuries, but, beat who's in front of you. You know what I mean?
100%. The way I see it, people like to put asterisks through since COVID started. People like to put asterisks on people's championships. The only way I would put an asterisk is maybe if the league has to adjust itself entirely. For example, in the hockey world right now, we see the Montreal Canadiens are in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yep.
I'm a Montreal Canadiens fan, but if someone were to say there's potentially an asterisk for that, I would understand it because at the end of the day, they played a full regular season against only Canadian teams. They never got to play against the Tampa Bay Lightning throughout the regular season. So I would understand that to say that, even if the Leafs made it to the finals, it would have been an asterisk. Whatever Canadian team, Italy on the brain, whatever Canadian team would make it to the finals, I would definitely consider putting an asterisk for. But I just don't see how you can put that with basketball because every team is facing the same injuries. We'll touch on the East later, but literally every single big team in the playoffs has endured some sort of tough injury. The Jazz had it with Donovan Mitchell. We had LeBron and
Mike Conley as well.
Mike Conley. I forgot about Mike Conley.
LeBron and AD in the first round.
I'll leave the East injuries for later because there's a whole lot to talk about over there. Mm-hmm. But the way you navigate those injuries is what shows resiliency, and that's what shows a championship team is not just the 5 on the court. It's everyone. It's the medical team because the medical team is taking care of making sure that you guys are staying as healthy as possible, right? So all credit to the Suns. I don't want to hear no disrespect. One of my favorite all-time point guards, Chris Paul, is finally in the finals. He's finally going to get the respect he deserves, and he's finally going to be in the conversation for all-time great because all-time greatest point guard because he's going to have the championship when he wins
all-time greatest point guard.
For me, because there's nothing that all those all-time greats like Magic, like Stockton, like Isaiah Thomas do on the court that CP3 doesn't. There's nothing. There's only thing he had. The only blemish he had was there was no ring. Now he has the chance, and now he's going to do it.
So you think we'll get to this later, but you think Phoenix has a pretty good shot at taking it home based off just the Eastern Conference? That series is going to take a bit longer. They'll have a bit more time to rest and game plan. Also, Trae Young's dealing with injuries, Clint Capella's dealing with injuries, and obviously the big one, Giannis, he has a pretty significant injury. So as of right now, I know things can change, but would you have the Suns winning it all?
I will never say 100%, but I do believe that they can most definitely, because when you have Chris Paul on your team, anything can happen first and foremost. Devin Booker has been balling. DeAndre Ayton has been balling. There's nothing holding these Suns back. That's what I believe. There's nothing that I can say, I don't know if they can do it. I think they can do it. Whether or not they get beat, that's a different story. We'll see what happens when with comes out of the East. But I think the Suns definitely have a legit chance, and they're looking like one of the best teams in basketball right now.
100%. No, and we can talk about like the star talent, but that big, what do you call it, a big three? Always the trio of Paul, Ayton, and Booker. That's, I'd have to say, out of the active teams are remaining, so them and the two teams in the East, that's definitely the most formidable threesome that's out there when healthy. I'd say, yeah, because you could look at Holiday, Middleton, and Giannis on the Bucks, but Giannis, he might not play again this season, and over in Atlanta, it's kind of an odd team because there's no all-stars on that team. Trae Young's great, but he's been dealing with injuries, and the rest of that team, it's nice surrounding pieces, but it's nothing that can stack up to the three they got in Phoenix. Would you agree with that?
100%. I mean, the thing is, even with Giannis, like, we know Giannis is great. We know Giannis is two-time MVP, league MVP.
Defensive player of the
but
year.
we do know he has his downsides. We do know when you take him to the line, potentially he will at least 50% of the time miss or airball. If they put him to the perimeter, he's potentially going to be missing a lot of shots, right? So there's a lot of things that we know that are weaknesses on their game. I don't see a lot of weaknesses in the Suns team right now.
Yeah, and like the bench, Cameron Johnson, he's really solid. Jay Crowder, you get him going. Bridges, Cameron Payne, even all guys that have contributed and gotten buckets. Even Dario Saric off the bench last night, he was shooting threes. Get him open, he'll hit shots for you. So just based off the fact that they're here much earlier in the finals, they get a bit of extra time to game plan, as I said, rest and recuperate. They're definitely I'd say the better spot going into the finals. And I believe they would have home court advantage. I'm not exactly sure on that, but if they played Atlanta, which is very likely, they could definitely have that. So any more thoughts on the Suns, or should we get over to the East?
Let's get over to the East.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Milan 2-2 in that series between the Milwaukee Bucks and Atlanta Hawks. Game 5 of that series is tonight. Milwaukee, as the home court team, will be hosting over in Milwaukee. The big story out of this entire series has to be Giannis Antetokounmpo's injury. Hyperextended his left knee in the third quarter of Game 5, just after he was really getting going in that third quarter. Milwaukee was down, but he was starting to fire up, get some touches, get some buckets, and a really unfortunate timing for an injury like that. Luckily, it's only seems to be a hyperextension. For me, when I first saw it, I was having Derrick Rose flashbacks. I thought this guy, he was on such a good trajectory for his career, 2-time MVP. I thought it was going to be the end, not the end of his career, but I thought this was going to be a grisly injury. But luckily, only hyperextension. But again, the timetable unclear. Obviously, not much more you can really say than this is a brutal injury, and you hope the best for him.
Of course, and likewise for Trae Young, who tripped over the referee's leg and twisted his ankles pretty bad, because he's going to be missing this game and he missed last game. It's unfortunate because it feels like this season's just been riddled with injuries. Like every big star has been injured, and it's just the last thing you want to see in the game, right? Like, you want, as much as you may hate some stars, you want to see them at their best. You want to see competition. You want to see people doing their best to fight for a championship. And Giannis, I hope he comes back soon. We don't, like you said, we don't know the timetable, but he will most definitely be back for next season. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
From what we understand. But I just hope he's back for the series, at least if not for this series. If they make it to the finals, I want to see him compete against the likes of Devin Booker and Chris Paul and it'll be an interesting series to say the least, both in the Eastern Conference Finals and in the NBA Finals, because both teams are looking interesting to say the least. Because what we've seen with the Hawks is even when Trae Young went out after killing it, shimmying all over these guys, he was destroying them, and we did not expect this. Lou Williams, 11 pepper Lou, shows up and puts up 20 plus points. I think they had about 5 or 6 players that had 10 plus points in that game. Kevin Herter, it's a good team, but it's not, it's like more of so a team collective is good, but there, like you said, there's no stars per se, right? So I want to see what they can do in this series before I can say what will happen in the finals. But
and yeah, as you said, Trae Young, well, he's a bona fide star. There's no doubt about that. But his emergence into his stardom definitely came in this playoffs. Atlanta, with a coaching change earlier this season, it was in a bit of turmoil for sure, and they've really turned it around. And obviously now 2 games away from the NBA Finals, perhaps that would be quite the story. Yeah, but it's, as you said, Milan, going to be really intriguing to see what both teams do without their best player on the court. It's going to come down to both teams and what they have in depth. I don't really trust Milwaukee, but I can't say I exactly trust either team. So it's a really fair fight. It's actually kind of nice to see that because, for so many years, the East was dominated by LeBron. You had one clear team coming out of that conference. Also this year with the Brooklyn Nets, and had they stayed healthy, they would have been a clear favorite for me to just not sweep, but, take an easy path to the finals. So it's going to be really interesting to see what both teams do without their star players. Going back to Giannis really quickly, if you're the Bucks, Milan, what do you do with his injury? Because we saw what happened with Kevin Durant a couple of years ago. In 2019, obviously the Warriors clearly rushed him back from that injury, and it made him miss a season of his career. He's still a great player, no doubt, but if you're the Bucks, do you risk it trying to make it to the finals because this is such a great opportunity, or do you kind of step back and say we still have a 26-year-old star on our hands? Let's just wait till next year, run it back. If you're the Bucks, what decision are you making there?
It's a difficult question because as we know, the Bucks have been for a few years been struggling to get to this stage of the playoffs. They've been fighting hard to try to get to the NBA Finals, coming short against the likes of Kawhi Leonard, the Miami Heat. It's difficult because the thing is with Kevin Durant, it's like, from what we understand, he wanted to play. He said, "I'm not going out like this. Like, we're not going out like this. I'm putting everything I have, and we're going to try to win this." Right. And I would think, from what I understand from Giannis, he's a similar type of mentality player. He's not going to go out without a fight. So I would think that he's going to want to play. If I'm the Bucks, I don't know how you really say no, but I also understand the injury standpoint, right? Like, you don't want to risk a player's career, but at the same time, you can't take away the fight from a player that's been he's been waiting on this his whole life. Like, this is literally the stage he's wanted to be in his whole career. I'd say maybe if he's if they're gonna risk it, don't risk it until it's 1 game left kind of thing. If it's a 3-2 or a 3-3, then I would say it's time to bring him in. But for now, if you can win without him, try to win without him, kind of thing.
100%. And I think, if they make the finals, I can definitely see him coming back there just because there'll be a bit more time since that injury's occurred. Keep in mind, this injury was only 2 nights ago. I think it'd be extremely hard for him to come back tonight. So if he hasn't been ruled out, but the assumption would be, at least to me, that he's out tonight. But yeah, if they go down 3-2, I could see him maybe coming back for that, but still, that's a pretty close timetable for a return. And then if Game 7 occurs, then I don't even know what to make of it, because you have to keep, as you said, the bigger picture in mind with that injury. You don't want to lose this guy to injury and just have his career go off the rails at the price of a finals appearance. So it's going to be definitely something to keep an eye on. Do I think he's back this series though? No. I don't think he will. Do you think he comes back, or?
I think it depends on where the series is going. I think if they're up, Most likely not. But if they're losing, I think he will probably force his way in, just because we've seen how Giannis has been throughout his career. He doesn't go out without a fight. So I think he will force his way into that lineup one way or another.
All right, and then one more thing on this series before we move on. Your prediction for tonight. Who do you think takes game 5?
I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very even series, which we did not see coming.
No.
Going into the series, we thought this was, I thought this was Bucks in 5. I thought, the Hawks are good, but the Bucks are too big, too strong for them.
Mm-hmm.
But they've proven me wrong. I'll take Atlanta tonight.
You'll take Atlanta. Wow. Going back with a 3-2 lead. I'll go against you. I'll take the Bucks. I think Chris Middleton has a really big game in him tonight, and they're gonna need to get contributions. They're really gonna need to run the offense through him, and he's shown he's capable of that. We saw that in game 3. Game 4 was a bit of a wash mentally, and both in the scoreline due to losing their best player. But yeah, that's my prediction on that. But yeah, it's going to be a great game tonight. And just, two teams without their best players, and it's strength and depth tonight. So I'm really looking forward to that. But it's time to move on to the beautiful game.
Yes, sir.